Hey, Adam. Can't hear you.
It looked very legitimate, which is the only reason it worked. I called and asked what he wanted. Perfect. It was like-
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on April 23rd, 2025 in the council chambers at the Municipal Administration Center. Roll call this evening, Deputy Mayor Clark,
Present.
Councillor Blackwell,
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger,
Present.
Councillor Prenger, Councillor Steinoff Gray,
Present.
Councillor Stewart,
Present.
and Councillor Williams.
Present.
So I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation, and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that this Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. We're dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and we are committed to actions that move us toward a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda proposed by council members this evening? And once again, I'd remind you to disclose any pecuniary interest now or as it arises through the meeting and the general nature thereof. So need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on April 9th, 2025 be adopted as printed, moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Williams. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have a special presentation this evening. I'd like to acknowledge Brooke Thomas this evening. And it's just not appropriate to tell the viewing public how old a lady is in like that. You just don't do that, but it's here in the notes. But she is, she started skating when she was 5 and she's been skating for 18 years now. So you can work out the math. That's okay. And just recently she competed in the Special Olympics World Winter Games held in Turin, Italy. She was part of Team Canada. There were 90 athletes competing in 5 sports, and Brooke won the bronze medal in level 1 ladies singles. So this is not the first time that Brooke has been named to Team Canada. The first was a couple of years ago, where she would have participated in Russia, but however, those games were canceled. Brooke has, it's not an easy thing to be a competitive figure skater. She trains hard. She's been to training camps in Calgary and Quebec City. And she's not just a winter athlete either. She also is a member of the Special Olympic swim teams and the track and field team. And Brooke spends her spare time working at McDonald's and at the LCBO. So on behalf of our council, staff, and community, I have this plaque that I would like to present to you, Brooke, to celebrate your great representation of Kincardine at the World Special Olympics Winter Games. Okay, family, friends, come take a picture. You get your picture taken. Figure skating. So seriously, you are welcome to stay, but you can go. It's going to be 3 hours of stuff. So we can work on that. Well done. We can. It's your choice. Next on the agenda is a public meeting for a local official plan amendment L 2025-005 for the municipality of Kincardine. So we are the applicant for this amendment. First, we'll receive a report from planning staff, and council members will have an opportunity to ask technical questions. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified people and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act. So after we've heard any comments from the public, council will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. So I now declare the public meeting open, which is cool because there's nobody here in the public to watch. One of us, yes. And ask our planner, Greg Wallace, to present the application.
Good evening, thank you, and through you. This is a presentation for the local official plan amendment L 2025-05, a housekeeping amendment. And the recommendation for this application is that, subject to reviewing comments that are received at the public meeting, that council adopt the amendment and forward the necessary bylaw to Bruce County for approval. So this amendment proposes to update the secondary suite policies in the Kincardine official plan to bring them into conformity with the Bruce County official plan and the provincial planning statement. The changes apply only to the town of Kincardine, Tiverton, Inverhuron, and the shoreline residential areas. The remaining areas in the municipality are covered by the Bruce County official plan. And the changes will allow the Kincardine zoning bylaw to be updated to conform with county and PPS policies. So residential units, as you may be aware, have been permitted in fully serviced settlement areas in Kincardine since 2022. These proposed changes will bring the policies into conformity and allow ARUs in partially serviced areas, subject to lot size and servicing considerations, to be permitted in those partially serviced areas. The proposed changes are in alignment with provincial direction. They take into consideration servicing requirements and represent efficient use of lands and resources. And they also help to offer diverse housing options. No public comments were received on this file, and staff and agency comments were supportive. I'm happy to take any questions now, if anyone has any.
So are there any technical questions from the council members? The applicant is already sitting around the council table here, so we don't need to say anything yet. Seriously, is there anyone online that is here for this particular presentation? No. Okay. So in that case, I'd like to declare the public meeting to be closed, and now we'll get a recommendation on the application. So we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the local official plan amendment L 2025-005 Kincardine additional residential unit housekeeping, and the necessary bylaws be adopted by council. And further, that the bylaw be forwarded to Bruce County for approval, moved by councillors Hinchberger and Stewart. Are there any questions from council regarding this proposed amendment? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Britt. All right. Matters for discussion and direction. This evening, we have the presentation of our municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So I would like a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine repeals bylaw 2003-25 and pass a bylaw under section 34(1) of the Planning Act 1990 to adopt the 2025 comprehensive zoning bylaw for the municipality of Kincardine, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the character, location, and use of buildings and structures in the municipality of Kincardine. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine declares by resolution that section 3410.10.0.0.2 of the Planning Act with regards to the 2-year period for any application to amend the zoning bylaw from the date of adoption does not apply. Moved by councillors Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Blackwell. Just to not that it matters so much tonight, this is not a public meeting. So if there were members of public here, they would not be offered opportunity to speak. So yeah, there's a council decision about our pathway forward. Manager McNabb, welcome. Would you like to lead us on this discussion, please? Or there's likely stuff we need to hear, and then you'll get questions, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And thank you to council for hearing this report tonight. I did bring some my colleagues with me. I have Amberly Weber here, that's our planning coordinator, and Nick Bogart from MHBC. So any questions you have, hopefully they can fill in the blanks. It was quite a comprehensive project. So I'm assuming there's a lot of questions, or maybe some questions, but if I can't answer them, these two are here to help me out. Just to give a bit of an update, the municipality has undertaken a comprehensive review of bylaw 2003-25 25 as required under section 26(9) of the Planning Act. That was our original bylaw that was adopted some 20 years ago. So having this brought forward is definitely a complex and somewhat mandated process that we're all kind of excited to be here. But under this process, the municipality is required to amend all zoning bylaws to ensure conformity and alignment with the official plan no later than 3 years after revision of our official plan under sections 1 through 8. And our official plan was adopted in 2021. So we're on path. We've been working through it. So we're at that stage now. And just note, the zoning bylaw implements the policies of the official plan. It also divides land into different zones such as residential, commercial, and industrial. It also details provisional requirements on building location, lot coverage, building heights, land use, building use, and other provisions necessary to ensure proper development within the municipality. Again, we've contracted this through our consultants, MHBC, to help us go through this review and complete the comprehensive review itself. And through the consolidated review, staff provided comments, direction, and updates to align with the provincial direction of the PPS, which is the provincial planning statement, as well as the Kincardine official plan. Through this process, key areas were identified and incorporated into the bylaw to help align with the overall vision and goals of the municipality. This process also afforded the municipality opportunity to address any redundancies, outdated provisions, provisional clarification, and better align with the municipal landscape and provincial direction. Some of the implementation considerations I'd like to go over to council with is adoption of this comprehensive zoning bylaw from council would initiate a 20-day appeal period. Once the appeal period has lapsed, the comprehensive bylaw would be enforced in effect. Any appeals received during the appeal period would be reviewed by the Ontario Land Tribunal, and recent updates to the Planning Act have changed certain appeal rates to property owners, which have the right to appeal to zoning on their own properties. These would be considered site-specific, and the remainder of the bylaw would go into effect. Just want to note that staff has worked closely with MHBC to review the comments and received from commenting agencies and stakeholders, as well as the public. Various challenges were experienced in aligning these comments and considerations in the zoning bylaw with the previously adopted official plan. This, combined with changes to the provincial landscape, such as Bill 23, as well as the PPS adopted in 2024, have constituted additional obstacles that staff were required to manage in order to compromise a regulatory document for adoption. Staff recognize that not all concerns raised could be considered in this document, and that any questions or concerns that the public feel were not adequately addressed are afforded an appeal field process under the Planning Act. With that, I'm happy to present our consolidated draft zoning bylaw for question and comments if council feels so.
So I'd like to begin the comments, and my heartfelt congratulations goes out to our extended planning team with our manager, Amberly, Nick, and County, Saugeen Valley, and a number of other agencies. And, you know, the part that I like of this is our staff has done to the best of their ability what they can to address each and every one of the concerns presented by anyone in the municipality. And where there is not an ability to fully assuage the concerns of the person with the, the zoning challenge, it gets sent to a third party. We've done our best. The applicant does their best. They present it, and it's an external party that says, here's the answer to that. And, the ability to move the zoning bylaw forward while that appeal process is still in place, I think, is a great advantage to our municipality. So once again, thanks very much. Questions from council members? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I'd like to add to your comments. The plan is not perfect. Nothing is ever perfect, but it's pretty close to perfect. You guys deserve a lot of credit. You brought this forward. I mean, in the last 5 years, we brought our own official plan in. We've had the government working on Saugeen Valley and bringing all their regulations. We're trying to bring in a comprehensive zoning bylaw, and our friends at county want to do their official plan. This is an extremely busy period. You guys deserve a lot of credit. I know that, you know, I can support this 100%. I know there's going to be a few hiccups, but we'll deal with the hiccups as we move along. And I know that, you know, being along the coast where I live, there's also Saugeen Valley and their Ontario Regulation 4124, which we'll have to explain to people, but you guys deserve a lot of credit. This was a huge undertaking. We haven't done an undertaking like this in 20 years, and probably by the next one, I'll probably be dead and buried, but congratulations, and I can support this 100%. Well done, team.
Sorry, Counselor, you can't be buried there. That's outside the zoning bylaws, so. Sorry. Counselor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you joining in on the appreciation for all the work that's gone into this. I know it's been a fairly Herculean effort. One of the things that I talked about a little bit when we were kind of briefed on this project at the beginning was that I hoped it would be housing friendly, and I certainly feel like you have accomplished that in a lot of the work that was done. One of the things I did want to see if we could touch on a little bit was the EP1 and the EP2 zoning, and just giving another refresher of what those zones mean for those who may be seeing that on their property and mapping.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I can definitely elaborate on that. That's probably been one of the single most complex questions we received at our office, and just to go through some of the history when I got here, one of the first things that we ran into with the zoning was we had an EP designation under our 2003 bylaw that didn't align with our conservation mapping. So we would have a conservation requirement in a regulatory area that would get a conservation permit, but yet they come to the municipality for a building permit, which would be within an EP zone, and you could not do what you were permitted to in the conservation because the two didn't align. One of the challenges to go through this comprehensive view was to align us with the conservation authority. So if the conservation would grant an approval for a project, we could also do so under our zoning bylaw. To do that also came with its challenges with the updated mapping from the Conservation Authority in 2018, which significantly increased some of the conservation boundary areas. We had to come up with a proposal that would work, that would appease the PPS, the official plan, the county, the Bruce County OP. There was a number of moving parts. And to do that, we came up with an EP1 and an EP2. EP1, a lot of residents will notice that it has changed on their current zoning to the new zoning. And what that is, that's aligning our official plan, our zoning bylaw with the official plan that was done in 2021, which increased our natural environment areas. So we are required to align with the official plan. And to do that, our zoning bylaw had to pick up those natural environment areas. We couldn't reduce them, change them, or alter them. That had already been approved by this council or by Kincardine Council. So in doing so, aligning that Saugeen Valley conservation layer with our EP1, which is basically dividing the EP layer into two special zones. EP1, you're subject to conservation approval, as well as you might have some county approval. There may be some natural heritage and some natural hazard and natural heritage features on that EP1 property, but predominantly that would require you to get a conservation approval. With that conservation approval on your EP1, you would default to, we consult to adjust your EP limits to match your parent zone, let's call it. So if you're an R1, we would adjust that EP limit, the EP1, to expand and basically allow you to have an R1 designation expanded on your property, and you would be allowed to do any projects in accordance with the R1 provisions. This also applies in rural areas where if you are in an EP1 designated zone, that zone could be adjusted through consultation with the Conservation Authority myself to adopt and assume the zoning provisions of the abutting zone. So if you're in an agricultural zone, you would assume the agricultural 1 zone. So it works for both residential and agricultural. The next stage of this was EP2, which is a less restrictive protection zone. And that zone would be required to be in consultation with the county and myself to adjust those limits to allow for development to happen within those specific zones. Typically, EP2 is outside EP1 or anything regulated through the conservation regulatory area. So there's certain properties that may have EP1 and 2, and there may be an existing house. What this does is allows you to do renovations, repairs, extensions to that house, provided if you're an EP1, you have a conservation permit, that you can do those adjustments, enlargements in accordance with the R1 provisions. So I know this sounds very, it is complex. There's no easy way to say it. It's one way that we've developed and looked at that in consultation with our stakeholders, that everyone somewhat got on board and aligned with it. And it satisfies a lot of the conservation rules and regulations, as well as other administrative agencies that also have commenting authority. So we've done this and through help with Nick and Amberly and everyone to come up with these 2 zones to allow us to move forward on these properties that have existing residences. Typically, it prohibits new development. If you have a vacant parcel of zone EP1, nothing's really changed because it would be environmental protection right now and subject to a conservation authority permit, which is very difficult if you have a vacant parcel of land. So it's protecting the environmental protection features that are basically identified through the province, and we've maintained that goal and vision within aligned with our official plan. So I think we've bridged that gap to still allow residents to do work within their own property and projects for their existing residences, dwellings, so they're not prohibited from maintaining their property. So that's kind of, I wish I could give it to you in a quicker, condensed version, but it's not that easy.
Councillor Blackwell?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, just a follow up, just because some of the conversations we've had specifically is a lot of the EP1 or the majority of the EP1 zoning that we're doing in this mapping is already in place in terms of SVCA mapping. So one of the things I just want a little bit of clarity on is specifically I'm thinking along the waterfront. If there is a property owner that currently like if they applied yesterday for a building permit or if they applied tomorrow for a building permit, in both cases, they would have to go through SVCA first before they would be able to get through to us, even though the mapping might look different, what actually impact on their property would be the same. Is that correct?
Yes, sure, you that is correct. Currently, if you were along the lake shore and you applied for a permit, if you looked into the GIS mapping and turned on the conservation layer, chances are a majority of your property is already regulated through the Conservation Authority, which those rules and regulations are under the Conservation Act that you can't do any works on that property, and I could not issue you a building permit without that conservation approval permit. The way it stands right now, you may get that permit, but you may have a portion that's zoned EP, which prohibits any residential development other than picnic shelters, tables, a viewing platform, stuff like that. So doing an addition to your house would be prohibited. And that's where that adjustment is in our current bylaw, that we can adjust that EP limit through specific consultation with the SVCA. This takes that clause out of the zoning bylaw and incorporates into the entire EP1 zoning provision that allows us to align with the SVCA. So if the SVCA says, here's your permit to do your addition, we can automatically align with that and grant them a building permit.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, did you have a question in there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm really happy with what you've put together here. I actually wanted to thank you for the time you took to work with the groups that reached out. And I noticed a lot of the comments, which I'm assuming were driven by different members from the PWEP. I did have one question though. I was curious how, from your perspective, how useful that public consultation was. I know they put a lot of effort into what they put together. So I'd love your feedback on how that process went. Because I think it was valuable, and I really respect that you guys took the time to have those meetings and build it into this overall process here. I saw all the responses. You got a lot of questions. you've taken the time to put a response for every inquiry, giving me the address, not the individual. That obviously took a little while. A lot of people reached out, so I thought I'd just ask the general question.
Thanks. And through you, and actually I might have my team with Nick here respond to the public comments. They fielded a lot of comments, more so than what I may have, but you can maybe speak to that for me, Nick.
Sure, no problem. Through you, Mr. Mayor and Councilor's question, it was a good process. Between the efforts that Amberly had in responding to people who inquired directly or over email, and we had an email set up with our company that people could just email to. So it was a good avenue to get comments and reply to comments as well. And just wanted to have a transparent process so that we can show how comments were received and how they were addressed, and how that translated into changes to the bylaw where we could. So thanks.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I've never had that explained so perfectly, EP1 and EP2. And to be honest with you, there's going to be a lot of questions on that whole thing. And you explained even the waterfront with Saugeen Valley. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping we can capture that, Jennifer. And if we could ever put it on the website, it would really answer a lot of questions, because you explained it with so much detail and you're going to get a lot of that instead of repeating it over and over. I'm not sure, but maybe you can work with Jennifer and grab that whole dialogue and let's put it on the website. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Again, quite a feat, all this work you've done. And I will mirror Councillor Stewart's comments. Great explanation. It is a tough thing to understand, the EP1, and now that we've added the EP2 in, I do like the fact that the new EP1 rules actually make it easier for you to align with SVCA rulings and allow things in that area without a zoning bylaw change, that you just go ahead and do it because SVCA has said it's safe. That's great. It's actually a benefit to homeowners. I just have a question because I did bring it up last time we talked about the zoning bylaw. There's a couple definitions that aren't used in the zoning bylaw. I think there is one reference to there is one reference to an animal unit in section 44.1.7. It's like a special provision for an agricultural designation. I'm assuming that livestock unit is supposed to be annual. I don't know. So I'm just wondering why we have a couple, so we have livestock unit and nutrient unit in the definition section, and they're not used in the body of the document anywhere. Animal unit is used once, but it's not defined. I was just wondering if, I had mentioned it before. I was just wondering why they're still there. I don't know how we address that. Seems minor compared to all the other work that's gone into this, but I wanted to know. Thanks.
Sorry, and through you, Mayor, I don't mean to, I do definitely recall that you mentioned the definitions that were in the body, and we thought we went through most of them, and I'm worried that one, if it's a MAFRA reference within the document, but if it's a MAFRA reference, it should have, indirectly, that's where you'd find that when mine says livestock units or animal units, it does trigger me to Ontario missile. But I'll double check that one for you. I don't have the answer, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's something that if it's in the body, it should have a definition. You're right, there should be a correlation between the two.
Clean up some definitions.
Well,
Add it to our housekeeping list.
And those
So if I may, I know that in other bylaws, the clerk has the ability to make those amendments without affecting the intent or the purpose of it. And is that an understanding that we could clarify that Nick or Amberly or whomever would make sure that that is included, either a definition or an omission of that term, just so that it's like, I don't want to hold up the process, but I want to address Councillor Prenger's comment. Is there a procedurally legal way to do this, clerk, please? Like, can we
May I-
just do
may I
the whole?
help- I can help.
Go ahead.
Ms. Laura there. We included that into the body of the bylaw to allow some technical revisions for correction numbering, cross-referencing, grammar, punctuation, stuff like that is all throughout the first part of the zoning bylaw. So it gives us that opportunity to do. We anticipate there's going to be mapping adjustments through the Conservation Act and stuff like that, that we won't be able to update our mapping to reflect that. So we've put that into this bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you through you. Just to build on Councillor Stewart's point, just wondering about what the next steps are around how we communicate it or what the communications plan is once it's approved. In particular, any kind of standard Q&As or anything around like EP1, EP2, and just what the communications plan is for the new plan.
Through you, Mayor, I will answer that. So with the zoning bylaw after adoption, a notice of adoption will be put on the website and sent to anyone that is engaged in the process so far. So it will outline their appeal rights. It will be the same format the county uses for a standard zoning amendment. And then as far as like additional information, we began working on kind of a frequently asked questions specific to EP1 and EP2 that we can send to anyone that's engaged or inquired on that topic, and as well as on the website. So we can make that available to council to either direct inquiries to us or people right to the website.
Okay. Having had the opportunity to ask those questions, we have a motion before us moved by Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Blackwell. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Okay. Saugeen Mobility Enhanced Service Agreement update. Just to put a little bit of context to this, council, there was a council resolution which supported the November 2024 enhanced service option as presented by Smart Mobility. I know that Councillor Hinchberger indicated that there had been some new information received perhaps from the board at Saugeen Mobility regarding a different option with the same outcome, but different option, different provision of that service. We still have a motion on the floor to direct staff to move forward in this particular fashion, but our deputy mayor wanted to bring forward this report from the consent agenda from 2 weeks ago to make sure that we had opportunity to confirm to staff which direction we would like to proceed. So I'm going to offer the floor to our deputy mayor and then to Councillor Hinchberger just to we want to provide the enhanced service. There's option one as presented by Smart, but as Councillor Hinchberger noted and our staff developed in conversation with the manager at Smart that there is a possible second option. So we just want to confirm we're all on the same path here. So Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. That's great, right? This came through to the consent agenda a couple weeks back, and I pulled it because I thought it was important to have a discussion. The resolution that was passed effectively would see the council purchasing a vehicle for the expanded service, if you recall from the budget. And this takes a slightly different path. We had made the commitment for a year, and this looks at the option of leasing, which I wasn't on the table at the time that or that information hadn't been available to us. So I thought, one, it's important that we discuss or have that opportunity to discuss it because it looks slightly different than what actually initially came to the table. And from my perspective, this has since gone to the accessibility committee. We met last Thursday, and the issue concerning the option of leasing was brought up with the accessibility committee. So they have had the opportunity to have some input, and they're happy for the municipalities to be supporting the expanded service. So that's, and I certainly commend council to be looking at ensuring that as a municipality, we're working towards being more inclusive and ensuring that we have accessibility. With regards to the issue about leasing, I think one of the questions that came up through the committee effectively was the cost effectiveness of it, in terms of you don't want to be in a situation where you're effectively leasing and it would cost more over time than purchasing the vehicle. So that was a valid point. Part of the reason that this has come is because there was the thought process of looking at what the numbers would be over the course of the year. So whilst there's a lot of merit in this, I suppose what I, over time in reflection, has had some questions about is what would be deemed as a successful trial period if the year runs and it's based upon ridership. I also, a part of me understands the benefit of a lease. However, there's a large part of me that likes the idea of a full commitment with regards to accessibility. And I appreciate that may not be shared fully, but for me, it remains a little vague as to what would be deemed a successful trial period. And whilst we committed, even on the original motion, to only 1 year, the commitment seems different than the lease agreement as posed, and the ability to perhaps opt out of that. So there are two aspects, I guess, that I look at. One is what makes financially, how does it look? And then the other is with accessibility, there probably is more that goes into it than just finances if we're working towards making the municipality as accessible as possible. Those are my comments.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think you summarized it right well. From the point of view of the user, there would be no different. It would be transparent to them. And like anything else, there are pros and cons. This alternative here, the pro comes that you're not quite as stuck to the vehicle as you would be if you purchased. The con is that you don't have as much control over how it might be used outside of the stated purpose. Like, for instance, expanding service beyond it. We've talked before, a few people, about the lack of transportation for those who are socioeconomically challenged here. So just so that council realizes that, under the old adage, you don't get something for nothing. If you're less committed to having control over the vehicle, that means that you have less freedom in terms of how it might be used outside of this proposal, which is a fraction of the total number of hours in a week in which it could otherwise be used.
So we have a motion, we do have a motion on the floor, as was presented in budget. Don't even have a motion. We have numbers included in the budget to support the resolution that was made by council to purchase a van. There was a funding proposal brought forward. If council has no desire to amend that by investigating this alternative supply of the enhanced service, then we'll move on, and council and staff will be directed just to fulfill what we had set out in the budget. So if there's, unless there's a motion to do something different, then we'll carry on, I believe. Councillor Hinchberger.
As sort of the principal or co-author of the motion that was approved by council in the budget. I purposely worded it a little open-ended, that the action was for staff to bring back the draft agreement for council's consideration, which I did that in order to reflect the fact that I don't think we could possibly see what the final result was going to look like until we actually engage with Saugeen Mobility about some, specifics and details that we didn't have at the time of the budget. So I'm not really sure the motion that council approved for the budget needs to be changed at that point. At this point, I don't.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. So for this pilot, I've kind of gone back and forth on it in terms of the best potential way to fund it. I think one of the concerns I've had all along is our ownership of the vehicle being used by another organization, and just kind of how that can get challenging, especially if the pilot is deemed not successful, which I hope very much that it is. I'm supportive of leasing the van. I think one of the other elements of it is if we are able to lobby and encourage other SMART members to return to this hours of service, that buy-in is quite a bit smaller and could actually encourage others to follow our lead versus the current motion, which reads that we're putting $200,000 towards the project. So I'm not sure how I would do it, but I'd like to make a motion asking that staff go back to work on an agreement that has us leasing, like just providing an existing SMART passenger van versus buying new. Our clerk may need to help me with that. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seeing none. Okay, we're not going to do that. So at this, what from your perspective, CAO, what have you heard that the direction from council is? Just so we know that we're on the same path. So when you come back with an agreement of some sort or other from SMART based on the parameters of this budgetary resolution, what does that look like for you? Just so we're not surprised. That's all.
Based on what just happened here at the council table, and I guess a motion being brought forward and not seconded, so not in the table, that the leasing option is not one council wishes to pursue. So it's about purchasing a vehicle, which will take some time before one will be available.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I'm a little confused because we only were taking one little bit. I like the whole draft agreement, and I'd probably move forward with the whole draft agreement. I have a couple of questions that I guess I think the CEO did the report. So I guess, Jill, it would be your questions. Little bit in the gray, and I don't quite know if you can answer that, but you said at the end of the one-year pilot project, will deem whether it's successful on both parties. I'm not quite sure what measurements you're going to use, and I hope you and SMART can figure that out and bring it back to us. But I assume it'll be number of trips and maybe the cost and everything else. The other thing is that if we decide to go with a lease thing, we only had $40,000 in the operating budget. We had $150 in the capital budget. So I assume the extra $10,000 would come out of operating budget. Would that be correct?
Correct. So I guess I'll just say we're discussing something that I think council just turned down. So,
well, I think we're going to have a little bit of, and then the eligibility right now, hold on, the eligibility is still under the SMART program. So it's not that open. It'd still be under the SMART eligibility. This whole draft thing that you put together to present to us, all the pieces I like. I'm not quite sure why we only took out the leasing, because there's two or three other pieces here that I think that it's a great idea. Instead of trying to find a $150,000 9-vehicle van, it sort of gives us what we're looking for the next year. So I'm going to ask Jennifer, I'm going to put you on the spot. How can I change this to make a motion that we should allow the staff to move ahead with a draft agreement and bring it back to council on this program? Well, we can overrule the 10,000 quite easy.
Well, if I may, like, because the resolution that was drafted as part of our budgetary discussion talks about the capital purchase of a van and, split into the capital and the operating side. I think it would be prudent for our staff to be given opportunity to bring back the details of what that agreement looks like. Because I know that there is broad understanding, broad consensus of what it looks like, but I think like every other negotiation, there needs to be some fine detail that's brought back. You need to correct me on that one? Okay, go ahead.
So there would be very different agreements to have one where we're purchasing a vehicle. So to be clear, I was seeking some confirmation, which is why I reached out to the deputy mayor and Councillor Hinchberger and the mayor to say this is another option. How is it best brought forward to council? The report was what was recommended. So either I'm doing two different agreements where there is one option for leasing, one option for purchase, which has different components and considerations because ownership, as has been noted, does have different aspects to it when we're not the ones managing and maintaining the equipment. So I was seeking a path and general understanding about which direction, and I would say from the conversation that I've heard so far, the consensus is to come back with an agreement that has us purchasing the van.
At this point, that's what I've heard too. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
So, through you, Mayor. Choose my words carefully here. My suggestion would be is bring back both. You bring back the one for council's consideration. There was always going to be a risk if we brought back one that was related to purchase, the council would take it under consideration and say, we don't like that. So what you provided is you bring back one that's for purchase, one that's for lease. Doesn't require a change to the actual resolution that was passed by council during the budget. And it's a little proactive because it entertains the possibility that as far as purchasing, council could look at that and say, no, I don't think we want to do that. And then rather than being back at the drawing board at that point and having to go back there, now you have two right available at that time. So that's my suggestion.
Is there any concurrence for that pathway forward? Is that just doubling your workload, or does that seem a reasonable pathway forward for staff? Seem like from a business perspective, you look at the two alternatives and you make a choice. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm not sure whether it's possible to clarify, but it would kind of help me in my mind's eye of which way we go, lease purchase. Because I do hear what we're saying about the importance of a purchase if we're going to want to really long-term commit to this, as well as the ability to leverage the van potentially for other thresholds that might not meet the SMART metric. I think that's an important thing to consider, being rural and having those challenges transportationally. And who knows what grants might be available for making rural transportation more realistic, even outside of the SMART spectrum. But when I read the summary, it said that we were extending services in Kincardine on Mondays and Thursdays from 6 p.m. to midnight, and Sundays from 9 to 9. So is that the only time that van is in use, or is that van in use for other periods of time? I just wanted to clarify.
We'll let the CAO clarify that.
So in the arrangement that's described in the report of having us lease a van that's not being used at those times by SMART, So we would be leasing from them a van that is otherwise dormant at those times. Okay? Okay, and then if we purchase, then we are having a vehicle that is only being used based on that enhanced service at those times.
So would it warrant that outside of those times, we could use it for outside purposes if there were programs that we wanted to if we purchased? Because it's only specified through those time zones? I'm just asking the question.
I think that's a valid question, and I, it has merit, but I think it's part of the business case that's brought forward to, yeah. Yep. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, asking the CEO to do 2 business plans is very, if you own the vehicle, there's a lot of time involved. You got to go and get the vehicle and everything else. You're probably looking at 3 to 6 months before it goes and hits the road. If we decide to lease a vehicle and go that route, we probably can get that pretty well done within a month. So, that's what I would say. If I'm going to spend any time in the CAO's time, I'd rather go that route. And I think that would be best. And then we really get to see what's going on, whether it's enhancement or anything. We're got the cart before the horse again. Let's just get a trial. Let's see what's going on. And then we'll be able to feel ourselves and be a little more educated towards where we want to go next. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you through you. I just have a question and a comment. I just wanted to maybe ask the question Councillor Stewart already referenced, that if we approved in the budget funding from the capital if we bought the vehicle, but if we leased it, we would need to approve from the operating budget. Is that correct? That you can't use capital to pay for an operating lease is my question. And then just a comment. My only other caution would be, I don't think a year is enough to fully understand if the project is successful. That's just my opinion. I know it just takes a while for people to get used to something and to get using something. And I wouldn't be surprised if after a year we looked at it and thought we need a bit more time to really understand if it's successful. And that's just from, it just takes time for people to get used to using something. And I don't think a year is enough.
CAO, please.
So just for context as well, there's only, we're only one party to this potential agreement. Saugeen Mobility would also have to agree to this. My understanding is that there is a report from their general manager on their agenda for an upcoming meeting at the end of this month. Is that correct?
So we don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, but I understand that's what he has shared with me, that there is going to be a report to see if that body is interested and even considering the lease arrangement as well.
Can we, this sounds awful, can we defer this till subsequent to the SMART board meeting this week? Can we have it on the agenda for a couple of weeks to either confirm SMART board direction? It's not my intent to drag this out, but we just kind of need some time. If SMART is not interested in one of the options, then that precludes it from the conversation. It is just a minute, to our Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hinchberger, is that slowing down the process too much, or is that an acceptable path forward at this point? I don't think we're interested in, it's not an attempt to, all we're doing is moving the calendar year or 2 years, whatever it is, a bit down the road. It's not dissimilar to some other projects we've done. What's your thoughts, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I think if on the agenda is SMART if they're going to be making a decision as to whether they are interested in supporting one of the options, then it's probably prudent to hear that, because it may it may make this entire discussion somewhat mute if they're not supporting one of the options. So if that's happening on Friday, if that is going to occur, then I think we should probably hear what Smart's saying.
You have opportunity to talk if you want to. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to ask a procedural question. So I made a motion to choose the lease option or to direct staff to follow the lease option. That wasn't seconded. Does that not end that as an option? Or can it be brought back?
I think the direction that council is taking at this point is not to choose one or the other. It is to either develop a business case for both or to get some information from SMART. It could be that the lease option is brought forward again. Could be that the purchase option is confirmed again, but we haven't precluded either of the options at this point. Okay, so at this point, I would move that we defer this conversation to subsequent to the SMART board meeting. Is it logical to have this on the agenda in 2 weeks? Can we be updated on any further information? And and if the answer is we don't have an answer, then we still have to move forward with something. Is 2 weeks okay? Is 2 weeks okay, Claire?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Stewart, please.
Just one last comment through you, Chair. Poor Jill sitting there going, we're not talking about the agreement, we're not expecting to have the agreement, but at least if you have an indication where SMART wants to go, bring it back to us, and then we can go from there. Because the poor girl's going, what do you want, agreement? No.
So there's, once again, a motion on the floor to defer this to our next council meeting. Seconded by Councillor Stewart. All in favor? And that carried. All right. U.S. tariff implication on procurement. So we need a mover and seconder that staff report Financial Services 2025-05 U.S. tariffs implication on procurement dated April 23-25 be received. And that staff be directed to modify purchasing and procurement policy GG 2.17 and current procurement practices to align procurement thresholds with OQCTA and the Canadian Free Trade Agreement thresholds for goods and services. That staff be directed to promote Canadian purchasing where feasible and allowable within the amended purchasing policy through invitational procurement on goods and services up to $133,800. That staff continue to monitor any changes to the tariffs and or direction from federal or provincial government and report to council as necessary. And further, that staff be authorized and directed to do all things necessary to give effect to this resolution. Moved by councillors Stewart and Blackwell. Discussion. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you through you, Chair. I'm glad that we're doing this. I think it's important given the current context that we're sitting in. One of the questions I was going to actually have was, and I could be misreading. I'm trying to pull it up. I accidentally closed my eScribe session as my name got called. So I'm doing this just off memory and I'll go back into where I was. But I believe in one of the other attachments outside of just the staff report was there would be a process whereby if we had bids by contracts that have the price increase as a result of what's happening with the US tariffs, that there would be a certain reporting that would be provided to us if those adjustments happened. I just wanted to confirm that because I did notice the increase by $11 of meters later when we look at our water meter costs, which is substantial per unit. So I'm assuming that if we pass this, I was curious if that would also require them to provide us that reporting, because I'm assuming this is the policy that would require the reporting for when those bids change. So I just wanted to clarify.
We go to our Director of Corporate Services, please.
Thank you. So through you, so that process of what I believe you're describing, it has already been implemented. And that is if we do have vendors that come in after the fact, after they have
had a successful bid, they may then go and do the procurement and find out that the price that they quoted is higher than when they go to purchase it. So they need to provide us with advance notice. And so that's the kind of process we have in place right now. They would have to notify us before they actually can make that commitment so that the municipal staff have the opportunity to say, yes, this is something we can still do and it's within our overall budget, or no, we don't want to do that. And then we can either reduce the scope or just refuse the purchase altogether. And then go back to the drawing board. But that's not an actual report that we would provide to council. It's just part of the regular process.
So if the price went up, like for example, $11 per meter, and maybe that's uniform to everybody, would that give us the opportunity to potentially go back out to RFP just in case there was someone else that could still do it at a more cost-effective measure, or would that be inappropriate? I wanted to understand how the process plays together because I think it all blends well into this overall policy. So I wanted to ask those clarifying questions. Again, I'm going to open it in a minute, so I'm working blind here, but yeah.
So through you. So we wouldn't just be able to necessarily say no and then go to the next lowest bidder as an example. Like we would still have to see the entire process through with that proponent. And I would have to, I hesitate to say because it really would depend on the circumstances. It's not going to be a straight yes or no. We go to the next highest bidder, or we have to close the bid completely and then retender everything. So I can't necessarily give you an answer on that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just weird when you're in a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and things have changed substantially when you planned a long-term timed interval.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I see from the Oxford group, there's overall impact look like a 2.1%, which is great. And what I'm hearing from Roxanne is perfect. It sounds like she's got this operational thing, and with the changes, she's going to keep an eye on things for us. So I can support this 100%, and best of luck, Roxana.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Well, thank you. Through you. One of the questions I had was, it looks like the thresholds through the trade agreements grow over time. And so the second paragraph in the recommendation, which is that we modify the policy to align with procurement thresholds. And then the next one is that we amend it, and this may be a different policy, but I'm not clear, specifically to 133,000. Would it be more beneficial to just say that we're aligning with those thresholds, and as the thresholds rise, so does our own internal thresholds, versus putting a specific number on it if those thresholds are continuously changing?
Through you. So yes, we could put a clarifier on there to say that they would increase along with the annual indexing of those thresholds. Staff has not recommended that we're increasing the thresholds to all of them. We're choosing the minimum amount, so the 133,800, even though there are other, like the CETA as an example has 353,000, but we are suggesting the lowest one. And so yes, we could make sure we tweak the wording to include that it is indexed annually. Yeah.
Councillor Pranger.
Thank you, through the chair. And my question goes back in alignment with Councillor Stanhope-Gray's question. And it's because I don't understand your process of procurement and whatnot, of the difference between bids and a signed contract and things like this. So perhaps my ignorance will show, obviously. But I guess what I want to know is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to amend because Councillor Steinhoff-Gray's question kind of maybe go, oh, maybe that's what I'm not understanding, right? So I'm just trying to amend my question as we go. So perhaps there's a difference between a contract or procurement process where it's at the bid stage versus we have a signed contract, because I was under the impression that we were talking about signed contracts for very specific project job at a specific cost to us, and then they're coming back saying our cost went up, we want you to eat that kind of thing. So is that what's happening, or is it before we've agreed to exactly what it's going to cost? Yeah, so through you. So yes, it's after we've already awarded the proposal to
highest bidder, or sorry, lowest bidder or highest bid. After we've awarded, but before we've executed the contract. So they can go and start procuring something. And then we can say, oh, sorry, actually, let me just think about that. Now you've got me thinking. So we have awarded it, we've locked in the price. So now they're technically committed to that. And so that's when we have the ability to say no to them, that they don't have to go and actually secure the items or whatever the product is. So therefore, we have the discretion to cancel it completely.
Thank you, because I guess I was wondering why we would entertain a request to increase our cost when we have a signed contract that is going to be a certain amount. And I'm like, well, sorry, you promised us that you could do it at that cost. So, I mean, I guess there's certain circumstances where it looks to us that would be advantageous to like work with them on it. And then there are certain times where you're going to say, no, sorry, we're not going to go forward with that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and through you, just to clarify, like, so for certain construction contracts that are, there's actually legislation that we have to, we have to follow certain rules. And so we're just saying, all we're saying is that we're actually following those rules of those agreements. Like that's all we're really saying with respect to construction. So there is already a process that's outlined for that. And I can't tell you what that process is because I'm not familiar with it. We've never had to actually do that and follow the process, but it is a legal process that exists for contractors and for contractors in the construction industry. So that already exists, and we would just be following what already exists.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, this recommendation specifically talks to the formal invitations of procurement. When we have the choice, like under 25,000 to basically do a non-competitive or direct purchase, is there any, I mean, I don't think that we can just require that people purchase Canadian, but is it certainly something that is becoming a bigger priority when we're looking internally, or is that not part of those kind of smaller purchases, those considerations?
So through you, so if I understand the question correctly, so if anything that we do invitationally, which is why we're asking to increase the threshold to that 133,000 level, we have more discretion to be able to make choices internally to say, okay, we can favor someone who's located within this geographical area or who produces products that are made in Canada. And so staff can do that. And through this recommendation, we're suggesting that we can do that we advocate for that. But anything above that threshold is public competitive, and therefore all of a sudden we can't give preferential treatment to anybody because we have to follow those rules. Does that help?
Sorry, thank you. I'm actually speaking about the other end of the procurement process, which is under 25,000 when there isn't any kind of invitation or RFP or anything like that. When we're doing direct purchase, when possible, is it something that we can be encouraging purchasing Canadian as much as possible?
Through you, yes. Yes, we can.
All right, so we have the motion on the floor about tariff implications on procurement. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? And that is carried. 2025 compliance with regulation 284/09. We need a mover and seconder that council adopt the compliance report for expenses excluded from the 2025 budget outlined in report financial services 2025-07 as a requirement of Ontario regulation 284/09 passed under the Municipal Act. Moved by councillors Kavanagh and Steinhoff Gray. Is there any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Just through you, the chair, I'd like to ask Mark, and Mark and I have already had a discussion on this, and it's going to be a great relief to the council, especially when you're talking about landfill. Ask our neighbors up north, Saugeen, about what they're trying to do. And when you start to introduce a new landfill into any municipality, it is a huge, it's almost like the comprehensive zoning bylaw. Anyways, Mark, would you like to tell the council good news that we have X amount of years left on our landfill?
Excuse me, I appreciate the conversation, but it's really nothing to do with the financial compliance report.
Sorry, it does, because part of the landfill is a closure.
Excuse me.
So we put money in every year for closing of the landfill. So we as a council need to know when it's going to officially close. So I would disagree with you. I think that Mark can give you a benefit that closure is going to be quite a few years away. So we do put money aside for closure and post-closure monitoring. So you don't think that we should know the lifetime of a landfill?
It is irrelevant to the conversation of the financial compliance report. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 2024 year-end capital review. We need a mover and seconder. The council authorize the reserve and reserve fund transfers totaling $488,269 for capital cost overages as summarized in the attached 2024 summary of reserve and reserve fund transfers schedule, moved by councillors Kavanagh and Hinchberger. Discussion. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, one thing that came out of this report that I get a little worried about is that we're carrying forward a lot of the capital projects year to year. And it looks like the 24 budgets for capital projects, we're going to carry almost $12 million, which is about 38%. And also see, which was great, that inside the report, they were going to do semi-annually reviews. We have to be careful. We're really starting to carry a lot when you're carrying 38% into the 25. And if we're going to carry that, it has a lot of concern, and I'm not prepared to talk about it tonight, but we're going to have to figure out, we can't keep carrying that kind of load from year to year. We're just burying our staff, and we might need to really start to pull back on some capital projects, or maybe start to bring in some new project managers to get these things moving. But I've never seen that kind of money being carried over before. Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do have one question. It does look like we are there's some deltas and positives, so it's balancing for the most part. But I guess my question, based on what Councillor Stewart just said, is how do we account for the buffer of increasing costs with the things that we've carried over, especially when you look at the US tariff situation right now? I'm curious how much finance we've carried over, because clearly those anticipated costs that we carried over are going to, I'm assuming, balloon. I hope I'm wrong, but I would be curious how that works, particularly in this climate. What contingency did we include for this? Sorry, thank you, Councillor Hinchberger.
Director.
So through you, and if I'm understanding the question correctly, so if it's a large construction project, they already have contingencies built into the overall contract. So I think it's usually around 15 or 20%, if I'm not mistaken. So therefore, if there are any overages, they would have already been included in the budget amount. So I don't think you'll see any impacts of the tariffs for the 2024 carried forward items.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you, just to kind of maybe add to Councillor Stewart's comment. And I appreciate that you might not be able to give like a blanket statement, but, can we talk about maybe some of the circumstances that result in projects being deferred or delayed, just to give us a better sense of, why such a large volume, or is this a large volume? I don't know. I've never dealt with carryover of capital reserves before, so.
So I'm going to deflect that question a bit. Can you tell us what the purpose of this motion is? It's not about carry forward of capital projects, I don't believe. Can you give us an overview of the purpose of this motion, please, Director?
Okay, so through you, so the reason we bring this report forward is because in order to close off the actual year end for accounting purposes and to produce our financial statements and to ensure the auditors are satisfied, we need council's approval to actually execute anything that's why we're only asking for overages. So we're asking council to actually approve those reserve fund transfers that were not included in the budget. So even though we're actually having a positive good news story that we have cost savings of over 900,000, we do still have to ask for permission to have that authority to have council execute the reserve fund transfers. So that's the reason we bring this report forward, but it's also to just provide information to council so they could see the status of all of the projects and understand where we are sitting with all of them, how much we have spent, which projects were over budget, and if there's any reasons why, then the department head would provide comments in the report itself.
So it's not it's not that the issue of carry forward is not important. I'm not saying that, but the purpose for this motion is a little different than, it's just an accounting responsibility of the council to authorize staff to do this sort of thing. Director, please.
Yes, and through you, we do provide semi-annual reports to speak more on the variances for the capital projects as well. So that does happen throughout the year, and you will be seeing additional reports coming forward in 2025.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Sidewalk and signage bylaw review. We need a mover and seconder. The council repeal bylaw 2011-143 and further the council amend bylaw 2003-136 as detailed within report operations 2025-07 to ensure compliance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. Discussion, please. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm just a little confused on the wording, which would imply that we're going to repeal a bylaw tonight without actually having a replacement that would take care of everything that we would go through past first, second, third time. And or am I just reading the resolution incorrectly? Because there's not an actual revision to the 2003 bylaw that's before us tonight. So
through you, Mayor Craig, if I may.
Yes, Director, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So with respect to the way the motion is written, and if I kind of walk through the two existing bylaws, there is the existing bylaw from 2011 that relates to the sidewalk component of things. The reason that we're suggesting that bylaw is suitable to be considered to be repealed is that there are essentially a few sections within that bylaw. One being your definitions, two being your sidewalk displays, which we have now covered in the proposed update to bylaw 2003-136. The temporary sidewalk cafes, which is section 3, those are no longer permitted due to the accessibility considerations and legal review due to the real estate and footprint that we have there. And section 4 relates to busking. In discussion with our senior team and through our clerk, we really don't deal with a lot of busking requests, and felt that if that is something that comes up, then staff would look to address that at a later date. And section 5 related to snow clearing, and that was really around the signage and the cafes. So with neither of those components really being there, there's really nothing left to enforce within that bylaw. Bylaw 2003, we're suggesting within the report to updates specifically section 4.8, and that relates to the freestanding and mobile signs. And those updates incorporate considerations around the A-frame signage. So I think hopefully that in a quick fashion kind of summarizes why we're suggesting we can repeal the one, because we're updating the other to really address the signage component of things.
Clerk, please, would you comment on that as well?
And say in the bylaw portion tonight, you'll see those amendments that we've suggested in the report have actually been put into a bylaw. I think it's the second bylaw down.
okay, hold on. In motion to pass bylaw, third one. Okay, third one. So. Then the want to apologize for not reading the list of all the bylaws to be passed tonight and seeing that there was actually a revision to an amendment to 2003-136, because I can't read that fast at my age. Is there one thing I really liked about the attachments was the schematic that actually showed a view of the street. And I really liked the fact that it kind of defined this clear path as starting from the boundary between the utility strip and the sidewalk and going toward the facade. Can you tell me whether like that's captured? The schematic's not in the amendment to the bylaw, but is that concept captured in words, because when I was the council rep on the BIA, I found that last year when there was some interim guidance that were given, it really was difficult because it seemed like people were always using the facade of the building as the reference point, when I think it works much better if you started at the joint between the utility strip and the sidewalk and work toward the building facades.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor Craig, and completely understandable, Councillor Hinchberger. It's you know, it's not a small agenda this evening, and that's, you know, our intent of being here to kind of deliver and answer any of the questions. So, yeah, the wording within the bylaw, so within kind of the council report itself, there's a section that, you know, summarizes items A through M. And within those components of kind of the update to the bylaw, it really, in a word version, articulates what's in that schematic. What I can tell you as well, that building strip piece that is, you know, along the facade of the buildings, that area varies significantly in dimension. And so through that, we have left the ability for people to potentially put sandwich boards in that area, providing that it doesn't infringe on the clear path of travel. And yeah, I think really just the clear path of travel. So generally speaking, you would see the sandwich boards placed in the utility strip, but there may be occasion where there is adequate footprint in front of the facade.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I had a couple of questions. The first one is about that building strip area. In the updates to this bylaw, is it only that you could put a sandwich board there, or are people going to be able to put tables or displays depending on how big it is? Because I would be concerned about encroachment into the clear path of travel. And just again, that 1.5 is the very, very minimum based on AODA, and we have adopted the London FADs, which is slightly larger. So whenever we can have a wider sidewalk, it would be much preferred in my opinion. But
yeah, so through you, Mayor Craig, to Councillor Blackwell's comment there, the intent of what we've crafted here really only pertains to permissions around A-frame signage. So anything else is not permitted within the governance change of this bylaw.
thank you. And through you, just one more follow-up. You talked about pulling or amending and repealing the bylaw that had the sidewalk cafe piece in it. Are we looking to include or have any kind of consideration into our patio policy around that? And if so, do we have an update on when we're looking at our patio season, our patio policy, given that it's almost patio season? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And through you, Mayor Craig. So in conducting this review with the signage and sidewalk considerations, we felt, one, because of the recommendations from the legal review around accessibility considerations and the confines of our building footprint to building footprint, being kind of east to west side of the road allowance. We didn't have the ability to accommodate sidewalk cafes within the road allowance, or rather within the sidewalk portion. And so realistically, the outcome of that is that if somebody is looking to have seating accommodations for their business, they're really looking at a patio application moving forward. And to make things consistent, to have it all confined within one policy or bylaw, our suggestion within this report is that we would just naturally include those considerations within our patio review. As an update on the patio review, when I was at the BIA meeting last week to present the sidewalk and signage bylaw considerations, we did talk about patios as well. Since then, the manager of operations and I have met with a couple applicants out in the field just to navigate any questions or concerns or misunderstanding of things that may be floating out there. Our review itself, I have conducted a review of a number of other patio policies throughout the province, tried to identify some vibrant areas or areas that were similar feels to Kincardine, whether it be a waterfront community or similar downtown vibrancy in that small town feel. So through that, I presented my findings to the operations team back a couple weeks ago and have consolidated that. And we are going to be working together with members of the BIA, as well as the accessibility committee, and then staff that support that to present kind of a similar format of things. And then through that, we'll be then augmenting or tailoring the actual policy itself. So with that, we're looking at hopefully having that done over the next 2 weeks, kind of on an internal basis. And then either late May or early June, we would bring this back to council for a consideration of an amendment of our current policy. At the present time, we haven't, in my opinion anyways, and I think Corey would probably align with this. I don't think there's been any concerns that we've found in terms of the 2 site meetings that are directly related to the lingering impact of the current policy versus what the future policy may entail. We've been quite open with applicants and you know, in terms of what we think may or may not be presented, at least in terms of change. And also what we think, you know, as an interim, you know, what we should and can do to work with them to make sure that they, you know, have the opportunity for a successful season here if they so desire.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I actually have a question for Councillor Kavanaugh as the current council rep on the BIA. I'm surprised that I wonder what the input was from the BIA regarding section 1F, which was that a sandwich board should be displayed only during normal business hours and should not be on display during the winter months, which it defines from November 1st to April 30th. Today's April the 23rd. I'm wondering what they felt is the main reason for prohibiting during the winter months is not to adversely impact with snow removal, and whether the BIA gave some consideration to having the prohibition related more to conditions rather than just calendar days.
Director, please.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Craig. Unfortunately, Councillor Kavanaugh wasn't able to be in attendance due to other commitments with the conference. So what I can say, a couple things around the delivery of this and the messaging or the communication back and forth between myself and the BIA is that, you know, they did have a couple questions and I could say concerns that we clarified that did address their concerns within that meeting. With respect to that exact component of this, I explained to the BIA the intent around why we've defined those dates. So if we tie those dates back to some piece of either municipal guidance or legislation or policy, what that relates to is our minimum maintenance standards. And for winter maintenance purposes, we define our winter season from November 1st through April 30th. And so to be consistent around that, we've selected those dates. But in our discussion with the BIA, we've indicated to them that, you know, if there is weather such as what we've seen now, where we're not going to experience winter activity, we have no issue from our end, from operations, seeing those A-frame signs out at this time of year. It's just a general alignment with the maintenance standards and trying to keep some consistency around that.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, given that the majority of these sandwich board signs will be within the BIA area, and that in the new bylaw, it's asking that each person with a sign has to complete an application. I was wondering whether there was any kind of time saving for the municipality if we were to do something like, say, that the BIA can apply on behalf of or can apply once for their area, and then they are able to support compliance with us on that. I'm just not sure, just because it seems like if we're having to do an application process for each board, that seems like it could take a lot of time.
Director.
So through you, Mayor Craig, certainly respect, you know, kind of the consideration around that and the potential time investments. From our end, with the consideration around an application, it's not something we're looking to make, you know, strenuous or onerous. Just realistically, it gives us a mechanism to have a good understanding of what actually is placed in the downtown core. If it makes sense to work with the BIA in the context that the councillors described, we're certainly open to that. I think the way things are crafted right now, it's somewhat open in terms of how we would accomplish that. So, however we do it and from a streamlined fashion, I think makes good sense. And it's really just so we can understand where they are and so we can work with them, because we do have other infrastructure that we place out in the public corridor as well. So,
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I want to thank staff for taking the time to go through this. The past few years, I think there has been a lot of inconsistencies with some of the bylaws. I think this helps to clarify, certainly with regards to what is permitted, and perhaps most importantly, ensuring that we're aligned with both with legislation, which was initially a concern. I'm also very pleased that there has been so much consultation and collaborative working with the BIA, because I think Councillor Blackwell's correct in saying that the signs are going to be mainly in that downtown core. It's a change, but I think at this time of the year, it certainly allows opportunity for those business owners to know what is going to be accepted and what's expected. And hopefully through the process, Adam, I presume that you'll continue to engage with the BIA. There'll be the educational element of the importance really of adhering to the AODA. At times it does seem that there is a bit of an encroachment, or at least there has been in the past. So no doubt the businesses are trying to promote their establishment, but ensuring that we are compliant is so important. So thanks to the staff for doing this.
So a motion on the floor, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So that's carried. All right, sign bylaw exemption for 755 Queen Street Wild Wing Roadhouse. We need a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Kincardine grant an exemption request from section 2.17 of sign bylaw 2003-136 for the placement of a backlit fascia sign for Wild Wing Roadhouse located at 755 Queen Street, Kincardine, moved by councillors Williams and Blackwell. Discussion? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. When I was reviewing the schematics that are attached to the agenda, I saw clarification through our strategic initiatives and community engagement coordinator, and they provided additional schematics to show that it's actually going to look not quite like those drawings, but much more similar to the to what the Bruce has in terms of actual halo lighting in behind as opposed to lit letters. I'm not sure whether it's possible for that to be included as a potential amendment to the agenda or on like that actual clarification, because either within the resolution itself or within just somewhere to be referenced, because if we were approving what's attached to the agenda, it's not actually what I believe that they're actually asking for.
Manager, when someone comes with an application, what all details are on that application? Are they exactly what we see on our agenda package, or are they the amended and appropriate design? Like I know that there's been some conversation about the lighting, and just to confirm what the application is actually what goes up on the street.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. The application that I received and the drawings that I received, maybe they could use a little more detail, but it's still a backlit lettered sign that's going to reflect back. From the schematics, when I first looked at it, they were LED lights that reflected off the lettering. And once I got more descriptions, yes, they're opaque letters, so the predominant lighting will go back against the backdrop and cause that halo look. So there's still a backlit, internally lit type of sign. It's just the boxing of the sign is not maybe clearly shown here, but I think the overall intent is the same. But again, it's been a bit of back and forth with some conversation with the BIA, with the owners, with with other members to find out exactly the details on the sign. I didn't get as detailed into the descriptive design of it. I just looked at it through our zoning bylaw, through our sign bylaw, that it just required a variance from it. But I do believe we have some new drawings that I don't have attached to this report. Unfortunately, this went before I had received further detailed drawings.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, if I could add a little bit more, this was originally sort of presented to the BIA, and there were concerns raised because this is the first time that a chain is kind of coming into our very historic looking downtown, and people have very strong feelings about that. And so they actually went back and did several rounds of discussions with the sign maker and the ownership to come up with a compromise. And eventually the BIA has signed off, and the letter unfortunately didn't make the package cutoff time of Thursday night going out. But I believe that our staff has received that letter. If I can ask for confirmation of that, someone on staff. Because I wouldn't want to hang anyone out to that, but if I could get it, yeah, Larry can confirm this after I'm done. And then the other thing is the intent is passing the bylaw or the exemption as written feels very vague. If it would make council feel any better, I'd be happy to propose an amendment that would create a limit where the approval or exemption is conditional, that the final sign doesn't produce any more light measured in lumens than the existing one at the Bruce.
Challenging amendment, because that means somebody has to go measure what the lumens are, and there's a whole bunch of things. Councillor Steinhoff, Gray, you had a question, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm not sure if you have the answer, but I'll ask the question. I'm a big fan of consistency, so I'm curious if we've ever had any requests for exemption that have been denied, just to ensure that we're in line with because when you grant an exemption, if someone else was denied, I'm a big fan of fairness, so I'm just curious how often we've been asked for exemptions to the signs and if we've consistently granted those.
Thank you, through you, Meryl. I can do my best to answer for the time that I've been here. I did look into a little bit of that and got some feedback, and there was a sign recently we did with the Bruce that was similar, and there was one for CRG Energy, which was also done through an amendment through this council, or through Kincardine Council for an approval. So I did find examples of two that have also been asked to apply for a sign variance and were approved through a council exemption.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Something I've been asking for during our strategic planning sessions and things like that is for us to develop a bylaw for our downtown facade and standards for downtown to be able to maintain the small town feel of our downtown core, especially the main street. Without knowing exactly what if it's not going to look like what our pictures are showing us, unfortunately, I can't support not really knowing what it's going to look like.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, one of my earlier conversations was we've already approved the type of lighting that seems to be what they're intending as an end result, which is that backlit halo over opaque letters when the exemption was provided for the Bruce. Given that there's been at least two of those kind of applications and they've been supported by the BA, I'm almost wondering whether, obviously this is a broader question than this tonight, but whether it's more beneficial instead of doing them one by one as a sign bylaw exemption, that becomes part of the sign bylaw exemption in and of itself, if that's something supported by council. But to the best of my knowledge, based on the report and the conversations with our staff and the BIA, this signage is going to be similar to or very similar to the one that has already been approved by this council at the Bruce.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. We have through you, Chair, we have an extremely long agenda. I think it's time. There's been good discussion. I'd like to bring a motion. Let's go to vote on this, please.
Call the question. All right, we've had discussion on this sign bylaw exemption. All in favor of the exemption, please indicate. And that's anyone opposed. And that's carried. Awarding the sidewalk trackless plow, we need a mover and seconder. The council awards the contract for project 9213 replacement of trackless sidewalk plow to Work Equipment for the bid price of $227,619.79, including non-refundable GST. Moved by councillors Stewart and Williams. Any discussion? All in favor? That was carried. Project 9565. We need a mover and seconder that council awards the contract for Project 9565 Kincardine Columbarium expansion to Origins Memorial Incorporated in the amount of $117,800 exclusive of HST. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Deputy Mayor Clark. Any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Just through you, Chair, just to define, this is very unique, so we're going to single source this basically, and I can support that. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Award phase 2 water meter replacement. We need a mover and seconder that council awards phase 2 of the water meter replacement program to KTI Utility Services in the amount of $847,842.87. Moved by councillors Inchberger and Kavanaugh. Discussion. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was just hoping to understand a context around the $11 increase per meter, because that's a substantial change from the contract that was originally entered into.
Through you, Mayor Craig. So the increase in cost is 3% on the meter this year and 3% on the labor for the install for the contractor, which works out to about $11 per meter for install.
Okay.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Given that this is the second phase of a multi-phase project, is there anything that we are going to potentially be doing differently in this phase, or any lessons that we've learned that we might be able to apply?
So once again, that's a great question. But all we're talking about is whether or not we're going to buy these from this contractor. So when we get our next report about phase 3, you can tell us what those changes might be. Okay. Councillor Stewart, you had a question?
No, it's built in the report that we're going to have an FAQ fact sheet. We learned a little something from the first, so it's great. That was built in the report, so thanks, Mark.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do have actually one question on replacements. If
does it have to do with this contract?
You're right. I'm realizing that I'm deviating because I was curious if we had to purchase extras, but it's fine.
Okay, we have a motion that we award phase 2 to KTI Utility Services. All in favor? Yep. And that's carried. Ball Diamond renovation contract. We need a mover and seconder that council award the contract to complete Ball Diamond turf and infield renovations at Connaught Park and the Tiverton Sports Centre to Marco Clay Products in the amount of $105,446.68, excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Steinhoff-Gray and Kavanaugh. Discussion. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I believe, yes. Oh, there you are. Sorry, you moved. Sorry, you're not Dwayne, actually. I just have a curious question. And, you're talking about turf replacement and everything else. When you have turf replacement on a lawn, you can't really use that for 4 to 5, 6 months. So you're anticipating that some of these ball diamonds will be out of service for a while?
Thank you for the question. And the manager is on the call as well. But this is for Marco Clay. This is for the infield. So the application is a fairly quick application as well. The manager I see is on there. Mike, did you want to add any comment? You've been dealing with the contractor.
Yep, sure, I can comment. And through you, Mayor, the majority of this work is probably going to happen in the fall, at the end of the ball season. That'll give us the spring growing season for the turf to set, so we should be in good shape.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried.
Councillor Kavanaugh left, they need a second.
Oh, Councillor Blackwell. Okay, thank you, clerk. Davison Center exterior ramp renovation. We need a mover and seconder. The council awards the contract for the Davison Center exterior ramp renovation project to Newson's Niche Contracting Services, Inc. in the amount of $150,496 exclusive of HST, moved by councillors Deputy Mayor Clark and Hinchberger. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Davison Center wall repairs and ceiling contract. We need a mover and seconder. The council awards the contract for the Davison Center wall repairs and ceiling project to Newson's Niche Contracting Services, Inc. in the amount of $185,494 exclusive of HST, moved by councillors Williams and Blackwell. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Lighthouse repainting contract. We need a mover and seconder. The council awards a contract for the lighthouse repainting project to Greenville Restoration Services in the amount of $252,190 exclusive of HST, moved by councillors Deputy Mayor Clark and Steinoff Gray. Discussion. Councillor Steinoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just want to qualify, because I know that this has been painted recently. The lighthouse, obviously, it didn't hold up the way we expected it to. And I just want to confirm that Garland is guaranteeing this work for, I think, a 10-year period is what I saw. I just want to confirm that we have a 10-year guarantee of a known company that will come back.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, Garland is guaranteed 10 years. This appears to be a pretty reputable company. They've got multiple locations that they operate out of, so hopefully we'll have a better product than we had before.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. My question was the same.
All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Terms of reference for concept drawings for the Tiverton Sports Center and the Davidson Center. We need a mover and seconder. The council approves the terms of reference for consideration for concept drawings for enhancements of the Tiverton Sports Center and the Davidson Center, moved by councillors Inchberger and Steinoff Gray. Questions, please. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. This is a question specifically about items within the terms of reference. Is that an appropriate question? Yeah, okay. So my 6-year-old would be remiss if I didn't discuss this. When we were at the park the other day getting ready, we saw people voting, and he said if I was President of Canada, I would make a better slide. So one of the questions for me is, I saw within the pool element that we are talking about potential therapy pool for seniors. Are there considerations in there as well for our younger pool patrons for things like a slide or fun elements, zero entry pools, anything around those kind of considerations?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when we talk about therapy pools, it's a broad term too. So therapy pools are used for the younger children to learn the elements of the pool, as opposed to putting in tot locks inside of pools. It's a therapy pool for older adults. There's certainly different elements. The newest element that they have now is a step-in access. So as opposed to a beach walk-in access, and that's for slipping purposes. And you can have multiple programming options when you've got different sets of steps in there. As far as a slide, you wouldn't put a slide into a smaller pool such as that. If down the line, if that was a community wish, then certainly we could include slides in that element, but that's getting far more into detailed drawings than where we are right now.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, Jane, I just want to understand the process here, because we talked about terms of reference, and then we talked about architectural drawings and designs that can go back to the public. Shouldn't the public at least have a little bit of say before we go into that design on the terms of reference? I mean, I'm not quite sure how you're going to structure that that, like you said, someone might want to add something and we've already had the drawing, so we have to go back. How are you visioning this? Is the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and through you. There certainly will be a time when community engagement should be included through this process. I wanted to bring this to council's awareness at this point to ensure that the elements within the terms of reference were included that this council wanted to ensure.
So if I can be so bold to ask council, we've got a list of potential amenities that can be in either of these facilities. And, I'm going to encourage you to back up a step and ask the question, what are we heading for? Not the specific details, like what is the purpose of either of the Davidson Center or the Tiverton Sports Center? And like when you figure out the purpose of a building, you can figure out what to put in it. That's not a big deal. That's the easy part. But if we can take like even just briefly and say, I want our sports center, our Davidson Center to be totally inclusive of every activity in the municipality. I want it to be a 20-acre velodrome with every possible, like I want it. There was a day, not yesterday though, not tomorrow either, but anyway. So can we back up a little bit and because the concept drawings are great, but maybe it's not the Davidson Center, maybe it's the MOK Sports Center someplace totally different. And not that the concept drawings are bad, because you need to start somewhere, and I acknowledge. I'll get to you. Put your hands down just for a minute. Give your arm blood circulation. Our director will tell us, as will many people, that renovation and remediation is a far more affordable option than brand new. You don't get big and fancy and glitzy, but we've never had the conversation that says, this is where we're heading in 20 or 30 years. It's not the Tiverton Sports Center or the Davidson Center. It's someplace different. If you have thoughts about what the purpose of our recreation facilities is, rather than just, it's not just about the steps into the pool, even though that's important. It's not about the slide or the, like, what's the purpose of our recreation facilities? If you have any broad thoughts of that really quickly, like it helps our director kind of shape where we're going to. Councillor Steinhoff, great, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm going to not necessarily go on broad strokes here. I'm going to stick with my original train of thought. And the reason I say that is because I can't ignore the substantial investment we've already made in both of these buildings and what this project could mean for extending the life of our community when we struggle every year with the increases we're presenting to the budget for our constituents.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Awesome, outstanding, perfect. Well done. Pat yourself in the back, except it'll hurt.
Okay. So back to my original question, or not question, but I did not realize until I read this report that the football team is going to be using Tiverton exclusively. That was really exciting news to see. And that makes me very happy to know that there will be enhanced washrooms that are accessible from both outside and inside, which is also going to help, obviously, with some of the other things we're doing, like splash pad and the different activities that we have in that general area. The one thing I'll say about the Tiverton community is it is a really strong community. I'm really happy that I was born and raised there. And like all the community support for all the community events, I think it's important when we haven't invested a lot in these facilities to be able to do that. The one question I would have is we have some things that we've talked about doing. Like you have community hall in here, library, and we know that we need those things. So is this intended to be an extension in addition to renovation, because the current footprint wouldn't fit all the things that are here. I wanted to clarify that before I ask my next question.
Thank you for the question, and through you, the Tiverton Sports location has the luxury of expansion, so it would, as far as space, I mean, and so to include some of those amenities, you would be looking at increasing the footprint of the building.
And then my follow-up question is, based on what we're looking at here, especially now that we have the football team there and the potential of the concession stand being used a little more frequently than it has in past, I thought we kind of condensed it in order to accommodate the accessible washroom. Like, are there any things that we're doing project-wise right now that would change based on all the different things that we're trying to incorporate into that space?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not that I can think of.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I'll take on your big picture vision a little bit. I tend to try and think that way. So one of the things for me that I really liked about this report was that it wasn't recommending closure of 2 community hubs and trying to put something new in between. I think one of the things that I heard it just prior when we were kind of talking about where we spend some of our time with our kids, was that when we're at the Davidson Center, it has everything there. And I think what I liked about some of what the recommendation was for the Tiverton Sports Center was it's trying to do a similar model at a scale that fits that community. And I think when we think about places where the community can gather, those are where we always end up gathering. And to ensure that they're walkable, to ensure that the youth can get there, that seniors can get there, that they are somewhere that we as a community build around versus putting off to the edge is something that's really important to me. And so the fact that we're looking at, we've had the Davidson Center, it's been 50 years now. It's kind of been the envy of everyone in the area. And I think there's real life left in that building that we can, judiciously make great decisions to keep it the vibrant place that it is, rather than kind of abandoning it and building shiny and new just to have something shiny and new.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you. Through your mayor, I'll probably add and build on what Councillor Blackwell had to say. I think that these recreation centers, they're community centers, and a recreation center is a specific type of a community center. And so while it might look good on one hand to have, say, a bright, shiny new megaplex in some central location, I think that runs the risk of, I hear the term hollowing out a lot lately about downtowns. I think that has an effect of hollowing out some of your settlement areas. I can see, like, if I dream about of a future, like the director said, that the Tiverton site has the benefit of having land to expand. As in the Davidson Center, I know someday we're all dreaming about a new senior school in here, but I can see a future in which we might want to evaluate whether a track actually goes at the Davidson Center, and there may be an opportunity in there to repurpose or reimagine that part of it, given that the existing facility or track is predominantly used. Large users are schools and probably should be closer to that. So there was a time when I thought about the, centrally located, bright, shiny new thing in there, but, and I almost think that financially, we're getting to a part where building new is getting prohibitive. Thanks.
Councillor Kavanagh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I'll throw in a few cents of ideas, just as a devil's advocate on the other side of this argument, not necessarily for centralizing, because I feel that both communities have their own unique feel and identity, and both bring different things to the table. And I think if you polled everyone, almost everyone in the municipality would clearly say that they like the locations that the current recreational facilities are located in. One thing about the idea of constantly adding on or trying to keep things going is you end up in this ship of Theseus situation where in a lot of ways, like the Davidson Center is wonderful, but parts of it are 50 plus years old. And honestly, if I can speak frankly, it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster, right? There are corridors that lead to various back alleys that connect around the heating, the electrical. Like once you look under the hood and see, my hat and heart goes to our municipal staff that to me seem to move miracles every day, where they're constantly patching and repairing and making things work. I worry that if you don't start planning for eventually having to build something new and you continue to just try and patch and then build on a little bit as needed, you can run into a system where you're actually worse off in 10 years than if you would have made the commitment to plan now and say that perhaps that track site is the start of the next version of the Davidson Center, and eventually the field trades places with where the eventual rink or pool has to get replaced from. But I like the sites, but I would say that it's continuing to just tack on to existing buildings has its own problem, and it's a trap that we've kind of committed to for the last, I'm going to say, 20 years, where that sunk cost of we don't want to go new kicks in, and it's always going to be cheaper to build onto the side of your existing building.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I'm kind of approaching this maybe a little bit different, but the same as everyone else. Because I look at them both as community hubs for all of the community. I probably spend as much time in Tiverton as I do at the Davidson Center. And so when I look at them, I think about them as complementary hubs that provide perhaps sometimes the same or similar services. And, maybe I'm taking my kids to the gym at the Tiverton Arena because that's where basketball is held that day. And so to me, I'm looking at it almost like we all live in the municipality of Kincardine, and Tiverton is kind of, the north end of town. And sometimes you have to drive to the north end and sometimes you drive to the south end. And so if I look at it from that perspective, I think a good starting point is, what is the current capacity? What's the current use? What's the projected use, projected capacity of these services? Are there gaps in services? And then where should we expand or grow to meet the growing needs of the municipality? Like, I think it has to be looked at in the context of our needs and growing based on that. Because for me, I like the same. I like having the two locations. I think it helps. I'd love to. I think I mentioned this the first day I met the mayor. I'd love to have a walking track inside the Tiverton Arena because it's like you spend a lot of time there, And so when I think about just kind of the use and the needs and the opportunity, I think looking at it collectively is just really important.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I'm very excited about the move towards looking at Tiverton, updating, upgrading, expanding. It's a growing community, as is the entire municipality. But the benefit, in my mind, perhaps tacking on a little bit from Councillor Williams, is there is social cohesion in the centrally located hubs of both centres, both Kincardine and Tiverton. And there is certainly, whilst I take Councillor Kavanagh's point about perhaps something more centrally located, there's something to be said about having those central hubs that makes it walkable, easily accessible for those who live there. They're able to socialize and gather. And when we talk about building communities, that's such an important part of it, the interactions that occurs in those centers. So when I looked at the concept designs, it was exciting. And I'm sure as things go along, I look forward to the engagement from the entire municipality because similar to Councillor Williams, when you have young kids, you're using both facilities probably equitable throughout the winter months, certainly, and often in the summer with various activities held at both places. I think it's for me, it's important that we make progress really on this. I know Tiverton for a long period of time has kind of sat patiently and waited, and I'm fully in support about moving forward with this.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you through you, Chair. For me, community centers and our community facilities are a reflection of like the quality of life. Dilapidated facilities mean you don't enjoy them. It's not fun to be there. People coming to visit you don't enjoy them, and it doesn't entice growth or people moving to your community. I've seen places, some like us, like Kincardine is actually very unique, right? In terms, the municipality itself, in terms of having multiple little hubs, communities within the municipality. It's not like Port Elgin or Saugeen Shores is different. Orangeville, they had a new facility built. I mean, I picture it as new because I went there when it was brand new for gymnastics competitions and stuff. I know it's not brand new anymore, but like it was amazing. And it was designed and located based on where they thought Orangeville was going to grow and how it's growing. And it has worked out for them. And it made Orangeville more attractive to people to move there. So to me, us investing in these facilities is incredibly important given where we anticipate our community going in terms of growth and prosperity. I do like the idea of maintaining or improving both facilities. But to Councillor Kavanaugh's point, in terms of the Davidson Center specifically and the facilities within Kincardine town, I think we need a long-term plan that really looks at value for money when we look at the whole add-on approach versus a new facility potentially in the future and maybe long-term future, but start looking at that. And as long as our renovations and what we propose and what we go through with is adding value to the community, then I'm all for it and doing both.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I want to piggyback or build off of something that Councillor Kavanagh said. And if we talk specifically about the Davidson Center, one thing and other issues we're trying to get done in the municipality, we realize the value of having land. And when you don't have land, how long it takes to get land and how much you have to pay for land. So make the best use of the land that you have. In larger cities, it's not uncommon to take the philosophy for whether it's baseball or football or something like that. You build new in the parking lot and then you tear the old one down. So it's like if you go into, it's conceptual, but dream a little big on the, there's no reason why I can't dream a little big on the Davidson Center site, because if you just like spitball it, the track and whole area of field there provides an opportunity to build something completely new while you still have the other one in use, and then you tear it down when the time comes. So this would address in some ways this idea about continuing to add to something like pieces of Lego where you can just imagine like completely fresh. The other thing I think it's important when you talk about community, I personally, I have a much harder time feeling part of the community in the winter. Like the winter is a really different thing for me. And in the summertime, I don't think it's as a big of an issue necessarily to like have to drive to the soccer field. You got to do it anyways. But in the winter time, I think that's when when you have like community facilities and they're centrally located, can really make a lot of difference to the mental well-being of citizens. So I just think in the Davidson Center, let's not just limit ourselves to thinking about I told Councillor Steinhoff Gray, sometimes when money's no object, I build a new arena where the track is, I move the pool into where the current arena is, and I take the existing pool and I make that into gymnastics, which is available year round. I think I don't think we're just limited to renovation. Thanks.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray. And appreciate the comments. We have been cautioned. We have a few things left on the agenda. So if there are specific things that you are passionate about, you're getting a sense of where we're at. Okay. All over. But I'm going to urge you, we'll draw this conversation to a close soon. So if there's a thing that you are passionate about including in these terms of reference conceptual drawings, this might be the opportunity to mention them. So Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. one of the things I was thinking about is versatility of spaces. So like when we're considering these spaces, I don't necessarily see it in here, but how do we make sure that it can double for multiple purposes? Because one of the things we talk about is how often is this room used or that room used? So, you know, some places you see those dividers that go into the wall that can break up a space, but otherwise it can be a very large space. I would love to see flexibility in use as one of the concepts. You know, if we're looking at having it take over a community hall, a lot of weddings happen. Maybe some are smaller, some are bigger. The way that space is structured, whether it's for community breakfasts or a wedding or, you know, community meetings, town halls, that sort of thing. I'd love to see versatility of the space and how the design can incorporate like multiple functions in the same space. So, like even the way you use pickleball in what used to be the like the community, like recreational area that also doubles, I think, as the beer gardens for the volleyball tournament. That space does a lot of things. So versatility would be something that I would try to like mend into these because we don't have infinite dollars. So if our spaces can accommodate multiple purposes, that would be great. And one final comment before I go, I totally agreed with Councillor Clark's. These facilities are accessible by foot, and I think that's important. If we move to something central, like we're almost creating accessibility issues because not everyone has access to a car. Not everyone's parents are going to drive them, but they might walk themselves to that practice. I think these are things that we have to keep in mind because we do have a multitude of brackets in this community and a multitude of responsibilities and accountabilities, and moving those hubs can make a huge difference. And like closing comment, I feel like when we put that addition on to the Davidson Center, we kind of box ourselves into at least getting a return on investment on that investment and from there pivoting. But that's my final comments.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I've seen a lot of partnerships with community centers, with various other things, tracks and everything. As you're well aware of, that we're trying to build a new high school. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Orangeville, familiar with Markham and everything. They combine together and they use both facilities for community plus for the school. You know, now that we're hoping to have a new high school, I would like to venture out like the big picture and see what they want. You're absolutely right when my fellow councilors talked about, well, you know, Davidson Center, we could move over to the track. Well, if the track is part of the new high school that we've helped them with, then we would have the space. So don't forget partnerships. And, you know, I know it's going to be a challenge. It's been a challenge for the last 6 years with the school board. But I think we should at least contact them and see if we could combine and work on a partnership. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. I'll try and keep this brief through you. So one of the things I just wanted to acknowledge as well was the focus on this report for accessibility. I think that that's been obviously something this council has talked a lot about. So I really appreciate that. It talks in here about accessible staff, office, and customer service. And I'll just say from experience supporting people with various abilities, a ground floor is critically important that those are on the ground floor versus even requiring an elevator ride, because depending on the person that you're supporting, it can just be extra. That's just my preference.
Last comment.
I don't think anyone said thank you to the director and her staff for putting this before us. I'm really excited that we're putting so much attention on these facilities and appreciate the effort that went into it.
All in favor of the terms of reference for consideration for concept drawings? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. 5-minute break. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Here we go. Oh, we're still on computer. I'm coming through Jennifer's computer. Oh, we have to wait till Jennifer's here anyway. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're on Trails Ash Tree Removal Contract. We need a mover and seconder. The council award the contract for the removal of ash trees along the Red Trail to Tree Tech Tree and Property Maintenance Specialists, Inc. in the amount of $130,000 plus HST. Further, that council funds the cost overage of $12,288 from the contingency reserve moved by councillors Kavanagh and Hinchberger. Any discussion? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. Question for the director. I just want to make sure I got my mental model right here. This will roughly cover 1 kilometer of trails, and we have about 30 kilometers of trails in the municipality. Because I've had some people try to give me some ballpark numbers about the scope of the problem that we're dealing with here and what ultimately the price tag would be associated with dealing with ash tree removal through our entire trail system. And it would help if I had some good data to go on.
Thank you for the question, and through you. I'm going to invite the manager, he's still on, to answer that. But before Mike speaks, I just want to be really clear in that municipalities don't clear cut all of their ash trees through all of their trails. So there are, loosely 34, 36 kilometers of trail. We wouldn't ever be looking at clearing all of those, and you know that. But I'll let the manager answer in regards to the.
Well, just before to take this into consideration, my understanding is what we're doing right now for the scope of what we're doing has to do with addressing a safety issue on a certain percentage of our trails. And so when the manager of Parks and Facilities answers, maybe he could extrapolate in terms of what we're dealing with. And I realize I'm slightly into the
trees
beyond the scope. Yeah, into the I can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I'll let the manager answer.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. I'll do my best to answer that question. It's a little bit difficult to answer in the abstract just because there's a varying type of forest that we have across our trail network. So in some parts of the forest, there's more ash trees than others. So to say that, this is 1 kilometer and 1 kilometer costs, in this case, $130,000. So every other kilometer following this will be the same price, would be a little bit of a misrepresentation of what we're getting into. In this case, the exact distance, I don't have in front of me, but if it's somewhere in around 1 kilometer sounds right. This is a high concentration area for ash trees. And we are having to go a good distance back from the trail because of that falling distance towards the trail. In other areas of the trail, the topography is different, and the project scope will be a little bit different depending on where we are. And I hope that's a bit of an answer that I can give to this today.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, and to continue on with Councillor Hitchberger's understanding, I'm completely dumbfounded because, during budget time at 9666, I thought this was going to cover most of the trails. And, and all of a sudden I had to read it again, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, this is only part of it. So, we're going to see this every budget. There was mentioned in the document a tree survey report. We're going to need probably a little more understanding of what this is going to for the 35 kilometers. Are we looking at $500,000 to $1 million? We're gonna have to sort of put our heads together and figure this out, especially for next year's budget, because I must have been a little bit asleep here. I thought it was basically gonna cover all the trails, so my mistake.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think realistically, the ash tree remediation is something we have to do, whether we want to or not. I think the more prudent question for me, I understand that this particular segment's probably not a good cost representative because of how dense it is. So we're looking at a really dense footprint. So what I would like to understand is, after we deal with this dense footprint, is there any other hotbeds where we're carrying the most risk that we should be looking at? Because realistically, we're going to be hitting those areas first and working our way through what I'm assuming is going to be a continuous budget item, because we have ash trees throughout and they're going to change in their state as we go along. So I would actually like to understand if we have any areas of significant concern that we have not got to after dealing with this segment.
I can start to answer that, and Mike may want to jump into. This was our hotspot, and because it's in the Geddes Park area, and we recognize the fact that it's a spot where we would call a gathering place as well. And when we look at those places, those are what we deem as high priority areas. Mike has been in conversations with our, not only with Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, he's walked the trails with a representative from there, but also with the preferred contractor, and he can maybe add a little bit more context to that question.
Yeah, again, through you, Mayor, building off what Jane just provided, this is a key area because we see a lot of traffic through this area of the trail. That's not to say that there aren't other areas that see a lot of traffic as well. For instance, behind the Davis Center is a busy area in the trail. We still need to do that work in seeing how many ash trees for instance, behind the Davis Center, because I use that as an example, would need to come down as part of that project. And that would be part of that budget submission as we begin to forecast this project forward, to the extent that council directs us to do that.
All in favor? And that's carried. Community investment grant recommendations. We need mover and seconder. The council approves the community investment grant allocations as recommended by the Community Investment Grant Committee and identified in Report Legislative Services 2025-06. Moved by councillors Kavanagh.
My apologies. Before I make the move, I'm going to have to declare on this if we're approaching it as a whole. As per the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I, Roy Kavanagh, declare an indirect pecuniary interest with regards to several groups, including the Kincardine Skating Club and the Kincardine and District Minor Soccer, as I have family members that participate in these programs. Thank you.
More declarations, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Through you, I will also be declaring conflicts as a result of several groups. I don't know if I need to state them. Do I need to? That's fine, thanks.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Stewart and Councillor Steinhoff Gray. Discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Draft delegation of powers and duties policy. We need a mover and seconder that council considers approval of delegation of powers and duties policy admin 05 at its Wednesday, May 28, 25 meeting as drafted or with amendments. So there's basically a notice of motion that it'll come back on the 28th of May for consideration. Moved by councillors Stewart and Kavanagh. All in favor? Discussion? Discussion, yes. Councillor Prenger.
Thank you, through the chair. On page 8, the fifth delegation, I guess. that you
So,
could-
so I'm going to be a little anal on this. The motion is that we consider approval. All we're doing is putting this on the agenda of the May 28th meeting.
So we can't ask about it.
No,
Okay.
not at this meeting, because it is, all we're doing, the purpose of this is to put it on the agenda for the 28th. On the 28th, you can ask all these questions, or before, preferably before. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I think
Reasonable.
you, through you, Chair, I think you answered my question. I believe that our CO did the report. So would you like our questions about some of these prior? Because I don't want to see the night. Great. So we feed them all to you if we haven't. Thank you very much. That's just a process. Thank you.
All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any notices of motion for the meeting this evening? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, I just have to find it here. So this motion is brought forward by me and seconded by Councillor Prenger. Yes, okay. So it's for the upcoming meeting next month. Whereas the County of Bruce has established a waste management subcommittee, which has been tasked with coordinating the exploration and possible introduction of a local source separated organics program. And whereas source separated organics program are a proven and effective method of diverting waste from landfills, now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Kincardine formally endorse the leadership role taken by the County of Bruce to determine the feasibility of local source separated organics programs. And further, that council requests that funding be included for consideration in the 2026 budget to support the advancement of this initiative within the municipality of Kincardine if required.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other notices of motion? Notice of motions? Okay, we go on to section 357 or 358 of the Municipal Act. And once again, if there's any applicants, they can make representation to council this evening if they wish to do so. So we need a mover and seconder that whereas section 357 or section 358 of the Municipal Act provides a process for property owners to apply for cancellation, reduction, and refund of taxes under specific circumstances, including but not limited to a change in the use of a property, demolition or fire, the property being substantially unusable for a period of at least 3 months, or a gross and manifest error in the preparation of the assessment roll. And whereas, and in the opinion of staff, the 15 write-offs meet the criteria set out in the Municipal Act, and whereas the total of the applications amount to $3,847.15, with the municipal share being $2,199.58. Now therefore be it resolved the council approve the applications as provided, moved by councillors Blackwell and Williams. Any discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Consideration of bylaws, taxation, 2025 taxation bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2025 taxation bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed as numbered as bylaw 2025-050, moved by councillors Hinchberg and Stewart. Discussion?
No.
All in favor? Highway 9 and 21 area specific development charge reserve fund bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the Highway 921 ASDC reserve fund be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2025-051. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Steinoff Gray. In discussion, all in favor? That's carried. Motion to pass bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time, finally passed as 23rd of April 2025. The comprehensive zoning bylaw, repeal the municipality of Kincardine sidewalk bylaw, sign bylaw amendment 9, award trackless snowplow, award the phase 2 water meter replacement program, award the Kincardine columbarium expansion contract, award the Ball Diamond RFP, award the lighthouse painting contract, award the Davison Center exterior ramp contract, award the Davison Center wall repair contract, award the removal ash tree tender bylaw, OPA number 4 to the municipality of Kincardine, official plan 2021, housekeeping 2025 bylaw. Moved and seconded by councillors Blackwell and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? Used to do those one by one, all the way through. The consent by agenda. You know the routine. Are there any here that you want to have withdrawn for conversation? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you. I'm wondering if we can pull 8.1 BA, provincial proposal for strong mayor powers, just for discussion, just a quick one.
Councillor Stanoff Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'd like to pull, just for a very quick discussion, 8.1 Bravo B, and then, sorry, I'm scrolling, Hotel H, Peer Safety Report, Annual Update, Parks and Facilities.
Councillor Williams, please.
I just had a quick question on 8.1 BF, I think, the Community Services Report. I saw that
Just a minute. Well, the question will come in a minute.
Oh, can't ask a question yet? Okay.
No, just a minute. Yeah. Well, we identify them first and then we'll go through them. And personally, I'd like to pull 8.1B, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J.
I like that idea.
Okay. You got all those listed? Good. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. Just for transparency's sake for the public, there is, it's expected that the strong mayor powers will be expanded to Kincardine, municipality of Kincardine, starting on May 1st. And there, I believe, is some details within that report of what exactly that will entail.
Councillor Williams, please.
Oh.
I was going to talk about her.
Strong power, okay. 8BA, okay, go ahead. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I have a concern. I know that our warden in Bruce County had a concern too. I worry about this kind of power, not for our current mayor, but for some mayors, this could really change things. And with the power, you almost don't even need a council. But what I'm also worried about is that the province is giving the mayor and in the lower tier municipalities a lot of power around housing. That's not our responsibility. But I guarantee it, down the road, they'll say, well, you guys failed, not us. So you have to be careful. It's like a curse and a blessing. This one could come back to haunt us. And with our mayor, he has to be careful too, because there could be some abuse with this. And I think everyone recognizes that. So I'm a little disappointed by the province giving this sort of type of direction to very small municipalities. I think there's going to be some problems in the future. Thank you.
The strong mayor powers are very much like a hammer. You can use it to drive a nail, or you can drive a nail. It's the motive behind it. It's good or evil, just like and like any other tool you use. Councillor Williams, please.
Sure. Thank you. Through you. My question should be maybe fairly easy. I noticed in the Community Services Report, you're speaking about this earlier, that the new Zamboni has a name, Chilzilla. It's a great name. That kind of was chosen as the contestant winner. And I was just wondering if we're going to do communications, or if we were done communications on it about the winner, about the new name, because I spent a lot of time at the Davidson Center and saw a lot of really great ideas and submissions. And so just wanted to know if we did any kind of communications around the contest.
Thank you for the question. It's my understanding, I did hear staff speaking about it, that we are also in the process of getting sponsorship for the new Zamboni, and I believe we're going to do it at the same time.
Councillor Stanoff Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. When I was looking at the peer safety report, there was some dates that weren't there. But I did have a discussion before this meeting with our director, and she provided me with some really timely information that wasn't available at the time of the report. So I think instead of asking a question, I would just like to offer her an opportunity to share the update that I was given, because it was quite positively received by myself.
Thank you. And through you, yeah, there's been a couple of updates since when the report was written. The gate has now been received, and installation will be at the end of next week. The barricades have just been received as well in our shop, and I don't have an exact day when those are going to go out, but those will be going out as well. And the replacement ladders were received at the end of last week as well.
Thank you, Director. So I had a really long list, and I don't have a question about any of them, but I read them and I say, holy smolies, what a whole bunch of work that our staff does. You read the reports, and it is a credit to our community to see what our staff under our CAO's leadership does, and they churn through work, and we will never escape the accusation that local government moves slow. Some of the output seems slow, but the work that goes on behind the scenes is enormous. So for whoever staff members are listening, thank you for the good work you do. And that's all I have about this. Okay. All right, so we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated April 23, 2025, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Councillors Stewart and Williams, all in favor? That's carried. Member of Council, general announcements. Councillor Hinchberger, do you have one for this weekend, maybe?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just pulled it up here. So the Kincardine District Chamber of Commerce is hosting at the Davidson Center this Saturday and Sunday the Home and Garden Lakeside Living Expo. I think there's something for everyone in there, including there's a speaker series this year that will on Saturday from 10:30 to 3:30 p.m. A couple of the items will be building the Bruce, additional residential units with a spokesperson from the County of Bruce, Small Meadows Community Tiny Homes, Kincardine Environmental Action Network, and our own Kincardine Fire and Safety, Shane Watson. So I think the Cheesy Monkey food trucks and maybe a couple more are actually going to be outside as well. Should be a good time.
Councillor Pranger?
No announcements.
Councillor Stewart?
Thank you. And through you, I just want to thank all the volunteers on Monday, part of Earth Week. We went down and cleaned up Inverhuron Beach. We found very little garbage. We found a lot of fish, and we found 3 or 4 birds. But I just wanted to thank them. The beach looks a lot better and everything. So thank you very much for participating. It turned out to be a very successful day. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell?
Thank you. I'll just follow up on that. I was at the park yesterday and I heard a lot of praise for our staff for all the work that they've been doing to get Earth Week ready. And there was a wonderful turnout to clean our community. I know they're ongoing throughout the rest of the week, so that's just great. I also wanted to mention that the Hike for Hospice is coming up on May 10th. It's not in December, it's on May 10th. They're trying to raise $70,000, which is a big goal for them. But I think those who have had a personal experience at the hospice or who know someone who knows just how important that program is. I also wanted to really quickly mention that May 1st is National Physicians Day. We are grateful and lucky for the physicians we have. I know I'm only alive because of the wonderful local physicians that we have. And so just want to give a shout out to them, as well as our physician recruitment team and staff working to ensure that everyone has access to that.
Councillor Williams?
No announcements.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to remind everybody, I believe it's May 8th, but I'm trying to double check the date here. Ronald McDonald House Charities, it's McHappy Day. I know I personally will be volunteering there. It is Thursday, May the 8th, 2025. So it's a resource that I have personally used, and I really appreciate what they do for those families and those children that are going through those trying times. So if everyone could try to get out there, I would appreciate it. They're also doing Roundup for Ronald McDonald Charities. I always round up my order costs, so I'm encouraging others to also round up their order costs. The socks are for sale, $6 a pair, all going to the charity. So I would really encourage people to participate.
Councillor Kavanagh?
Thank you very much. And through the chair, echoing on the comments of our hardworking staff, today is our Professional Professionals Day. And so I want to acknowledge all our staff for that. Congratulations for all the administrative work that gets done around, because we wouldn't function without that. I also want to acknowledge that on Tuesday, May 13th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Davidson Center, we're having the Multicultural Fest. This will be its 20th year with the aims to foster community connection and understanding. For me, it's just a chance to try some absolutely incredible food. So I encourage everyone to come on out. And it's not this month, but coming next month, Rock with Your Docs will be happening again. That's the fundraiser for the Kincardine Hospital Foundation. And that will be Friday, June 20th at the Davidson Center.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Just want to congratulate the Kincardine Knights who are back from their World Championships. From all accounts, it was quite an experience, and it's great that these young people had that experience.
And CAO. Sure. Okay, so we need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering the closed session minutes dated April 9th, 2025, and for the purpose of considering a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board. Further, the council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Hinchberger and Prenger, all in favor? That's carried.